I get the president's use of TikTok as a means to communicate to young people. I, in its current form, believe it is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. How do we balance those needs, to me, of wanting to make sure that we communicate with young people, but also recognizing that this is a tool of the communist Chinese government to influence us and to infiltrate us?
The president takes that concern seriously, and that's why he is working to, negotiate a great deal that takes TikTok out of the hands of these bad actors and, gets it controlled by an American company. And so I think the platform itself, it needs to be protected because it's one of the most impactful campaign tools that we've ever seen before. The Democrats were all in favor of TikTok up until they started getting smoked on there. And then all of a sudden Biden's like, oh, it's a national security threat. Meanwhile, his son is the real national security threat. But the New York Times came out with a public sentiment analysis on TikTok in a few months before the ban came out. And it showed that through 2 million posts that were studied, 70% of those 2 million posts were Donald Trump friendly, and only 30% were friendly to Joe Biden. But the Democrats love TikTok up until they start getting smoked on there. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden looks at that and then he signs the ban. But he started a Joe Biden for president account. So, if he thought it was a national security issue, why is he posting on it?
All right, guys, as we head into Memorial Day weekend, I wanted to replay for you an interview that I had a little while ago with Alex Bruesewitz. You remember him. He's the mastermind behind the Trump podcast strategy, having on all of these folks that I think were critical to Trump winning, embracing independent media in a way that nobody else had. And Alex won't take as much credit as he deserves, but he is the mastermind behind that. And something that this current White House continues to embrace and excel at. So I'm excited to share this with you as we head into Memorial Day. Take a listen to my conversation that I had with Alex Bruesewitz. Before that, I want to tell you about a couple of our great sponsors. You know what chaos looks like, don't you? You've got employees. If you're the person that's running a business or in charge of the finances, you probably spend most of your time running around, creating expense accounts, tracking down receipts, telling people what they can spend money on and what they can't, what the caps are. Well, I'm about to change everything for you. I want to introduce you to Ramp. This is a Ramp card. It looks just like a normal Visa card. And when you sign up for Ramp, you can get physical cards, virtual cards. It's an entire expense management system that integrates into your existing platforms right now and will save you so much time and money. It allows you to set up, whether you got 5 or 5,000 employees, systems so that you don't spend all of your day chasing down receipts. It integrates, it updates, and does things so seamless that you will be thankful when you switch over to Ramp. I switched my company over to Ramp. One of our guests did it. This is amazing. They've got a white glove onboarding system that will help you. You can set up literally in minutes and get going. Ramp is unbelievable. 25,000 businesses, including Shopify and the Boys and Girls Club of America, have started using Ramp, and that's why it's named #1 in spend management by G2. And for a limited time only right now, listeners and watchers of this show get $250 in your pocket. $250 just by joining Ramp. Go to ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer. Cards are issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. All right, guys, April 15th has passed. That means the tax deadline is in the rearview mirror. But if you missed tax day, April 15th, and you still owe back taxes or you've got unfiled returns, don't worry. Every day that you wait now just makes things more complicated. 5,000 new tax liens are filed every day by the IRS. They've got tools like property seizures and bank levies, wage garnishments. Do not wait another day. If you're one of these people or you know somebody who is that didn't file their taxes or owes the IRS money, you cannot wait another day. There is good news, though. The folks at Tax Network USA can be your biggest advocate. They've recovered over $1 billion for their clients. They know who to call, who not to call at the IRS. They can literally take what's financial chaos in your life and have your back and have you covered. Even after the deadline, I get it, but it's not too late. It is never too late. Call the folks at Tax Network USA. Your consultation is absolutely free. Give them a call, 1-800-958-1000, or better yet, go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. One word, no spaces. tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. You may have missed that April 15th tax day, but you haven't run out of options. The folks at Tax Network USA can be your best advocate. Alex, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm just trying to suck up in case you get asked by like the president or anyone which anyone. So let me just start with your current company. What does X Strategies do?
Well, I started X Strategies when I was 19 years old. So it's been my company for almost 10 years now. But our goal when we started was to help conservatives communicate better online in the age of Donald Trump. So the company started just a couple of months after the president was inaugurated for the first time. And over the years, we've helped social media run the social media accounts of great America First members of Congress and leaders like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Anna Paulina Luna, and some of your other MAGA favorites, and ultimately worked our way into working with the president on social strategy. And so we're still doing that. And my firm's now helping run the president's social media accounts from the outside, accounts like Trump War Room, Team Trump, and a lot of the great MAGA assets that help stay on offense for the president.
Oh, so that's fascinating. So let's just back this up a second. How did you kind of come into the Trump orbit?
Well, it was a long time. It wasn't an overnight thing. Back in the day, I was trying to hustle and get on the radar of guys like Sean Spicer. But
wait, was I good to you? Was I nice? Oh God!
No, you were nice. You were very nice. But I met you for the first time with a great, crazy guy, fun guy, Michael Gruen. I met backstage.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Fox Green Room many years ago. Michael is an interesting cat. But
he was by the way, very helpful. When I did Dancing with the Stars, Michael would sit me down with like young social media rock stars and get them to help like vote for me on Monday night. So yeah, I mean he's definitely a connector of sorts.
Yeah, he was the ultimate connector, and I've lost touch with him. I haven't seen him in a while, but I ultimately got on the Trump radar. I guess, well, for the first time, I got retweeted by Donald Trump for the first time when I was 17 years old and I was sitting in study hall in Ripon, Wisconsin. And I tweeted a picture of the sign on Trump Chicago. And I said, the sign on Trump Chicago would look just as good on the White House. Trump retweeted me. 2 months later, he's running for president. And so like I was already like a Trump fanboy when I was a senior in high school. And then I became a very like habitual tweeter in support of the president. Started the company when I was 19. And then it took me about 3 or 4 years to really get on the radar of the family. Started working with Donald Trump Jr. In 2021. And then Don and the whole family were great to me. They introduced me to the president. And then kind of became one of the president's guys in late 2022, early 23.
And you now run these external accounts that, I mean, because again, same kind of stuff. These things are where I follow all of them for obvious reasons because you get a flavor and a sense of what MAGA world's feeling right now.
Right. And I have a great team. And I'm honored to be entrusted with this responsibility. And we try to, keep everything very disciplined on those accounts. And we like to have some fun, but the whole team is rock solid. And we're taking over a project that Stephen Chung started. So we have big shoes to fill. Stephen Chung is our Trump War Room leader for the longest time, and now he's running comms in the White House. And so, all of these assets, they were owned by the Trump political entities, so they couldn't go into the White House. And so, but they're very powerful accounts. They have millions and millions of followers, and so we realized that we needed to keep those going. And fortunately, Eric and the team asked me to help spearhead that, and so we're doing that, and we're doing great numbers. I mean, just in the month of March on TikTok, we did 152 million views on our Team Trump TikTok account. The Democrats did 41 million views. So we beat the Democrats on TikTok by 110 million views. Instagram, similar numbers. X, it's just a landslide. So we have the best team in the business, and we're gonna keep the foot down on social.
So let me just back up a couple steps here. So how do you determine who you're gonna follow on any of these accounts, and how much sucking up is involved? Are people going, "Hey, Alex, look at what I tweeted. Can you follow me, or can you get this account?" Or do they not even realize sometimes that you're the wizard behind the curtain?
Well, I think the team is the wizard behind the curtain. I'm just the pretty face of the company.
Good answer.
We
Good
have a really
answer.
we have a really great team. But no, we like to be as supportive on these accounts of as we possibly can be to all of our allies. I mean, we have so many great allies who create incredible pieces of content for us each and every day. And we are trying to amplify and share as many pieces of content as we possibly can. We want our allies to know that we see them, we support them, and we're grateful that they're out there supporting us. And so the DMs on those accounts are open. We get a lot of hate messages, actually a lot less than we used to. But
I know that feeling. I know
we
that
also
feeling.
we also get a lot of love. So if you have stuff that you want us to promote, just flag it and make sure it's good content. Okay.
All right. Well, good to know. It was interesting. There's a book that I had the authors on a couple weeks back, and I wanted to I want to read this because I want people to hear this because you hear folklore all the time in Trump world about this person or that person, but when someone else says it in an authoritative way, it kind of validates this. And so let me just read this to you. A newcomer to the political arena, Barron Trump played a major behind-the-scenes role in engaging both sets of voters. Over the summer, the MAGA campaign hired Alex Bruesewitz, a political strategist and MAGA-flavored social media warrior who'd been working at the main Trump PAC. He was still getting his feet wet during the Republican National Convention, but quickly turned to pitching ideas for engaging Trump with new audiences. One day, he parked himself on the couch in Alvarez, that's Danielle Alvarez, who was doing comms on the campaign, her office, and made the case for the president to appear with Theo Von, a popular comic whose podcast this past weekend is broadcast in the format on YouTube. After pressing Bruesewitz for number, he said Trump would reach exponentially more potential voters with Vaughn than on a cable news interview. Alvarez agreed. Bruesewitz dialed the former president who was on the golf course. You know I'm calling because I want to talk to you about doing a podcast with a super hot comedian, Bruesewitz said. Tell me about him, Trump directed. And then you gave him a thumbnail of Vaughn's background and reach. Is it a big deal? Yes, it's a big deal. You said run it by Barron. If Barron likes it, we'll do it. Okay. Why Theo Von?
Well, Theo Von is an incredible comedian, and he also had one of the biggest podcasts in the country. I think he was number 2 at the time, right behind Rogan. And Theo Von has expressed a Trump curiosity. And I figured that it could be a fun conversation, but I can't take full credit for that. And I really liked the press after the election because they made me sound like a genius. But I had really, I really had the greatest and coolest job in the world. I simply, the president, keep in mind, was a celebrity for his entire life up until he ran for president. And then, whatever, like then they try to turn on him a little bit. But, he kind of reclaimed that celebrity image in this election. But he had so many friends in the celebrity space, specifically one in Dana White. Dana White was the first person to set up a podcast interview for the president, and that dated back to 2022, where he had Trump sit down with the Nelk Boys for the first time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that went crazy viral. And then YouTube censored the Nelk Boys interview, and it took it down. And so President Trump, trusts Dana White's judgment on a lot of these different things. And so what happened was, the president did an interview with with Adin Ross that Barron initiated. Adin Ross.
So back up. Who's Adin? Just explain that to everyone. So who's Adin Ross, and why is that important?
So Adin Ross is a 23-year-old video game streamer based out of Miami, Florida, and he is arguably the largest streamer on Twitch, on Kick. Well, he's banned from Twitch now, but on his platform called Kick, which reaches hundreds of thousands of 18 to 21-year-olds just like that. And so Barron is familiar with Adin Ross, and they met a few weeks prior, as Adin described, at a Trump rally in Doral. And Barron suggested to the president that he should do this interview with Adin. And so the comms team set it up. And this is right around the time that I'm formally joining the campaign, because I was on the super PAC, as you mentioned before, because that's where a lot of people were before the campaign really geared up after the primary. And so one of my first tasks with the campaign was to have a conversation with Adin Ross and kind of manage that interview that Barron set up directly with his father. And so it was fun. Adin and I chatted about a few different ideas. Some of the ideas were fantastic. They came to fruition, including the viral TikTok dance that he did to YMCA with Adin that reached like 200 million people. But so we had great success with that. After that, the president was really pumped. He was talking about how that Adin Ross interview reached 110 million people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so Dana White actually sent over an email of 3 other podcasters that he thinks that we should do. And I was asked to kind of track that down, get in contact with the podcasters, et cetera. One of the podcasters that Dana White recommended and put us in contact with was Theo Von. And so I was able to.
Who were the other two?
I'm blocking on the third one, but Bussin' with the Boys, which is a Barstool sports podcast we ultimately did, was one that Dana strongly recommended, and that turned out to be fantastic. But so I got that email from Susie initially asking me to track that down per Dana's suggestions, and Susie Wiles, and Theo was fantastic. I started talking with him. And, mind you, Theo Von is not like an avid Trump supporter, but he is not a malicious person. He's been critical of both the Democrats and Republicans. So I considered him an equal opportunity hater. And it was somebody that I figured that would give the president a fair interview. And so I vouched for him on the phone call with the president. And he seemed to be interested. And then he wanted Barron's opinion, because Barron, keep in mind, was just the one that set up that viral Adin Ross interview. And so Barron displayed good judgment in setting that up. And when you display good judgment, the president wants your opinion more. And so that's kind of how that Theo Von interview came about.
So a couple things. One, so is it Dana that's connecting you? I mean, like, in other words, you didn't just reach out to Theo Von by info@theovon.com. Like, Dana hooked you guys up?
Right. We had Dana hook us up. We had, this whole process was awesome. I was simply the liaison between all of the celebrity world and the president. And I leveraged some of my relationships that knew some of these people. Dana had relationships that knew some of these people. The children had relationships that knew some of these people. And I was simply the person that was just connecting them, making sure everything ran smoothly, making sure that we were, getting proper time with the president. And the president has the luxury of having so many incredible friends, and then also having incredibly connected and impressive children. Every child played a role in the podcast strategy. Every child played a role in the social media strategy. Eric Trump, for example, would hop on calls with me and the social media influencers to make sure that they were in support of what we were doing. We're being kept in the loop with what we were doing, and he would hop on these calls for hours on a time and make sure that the influencers knew that the family respected them and appreciate everything that they were doing. And so I had really the greatest role that one could have in that campaign. I'm just so blessed to be part of it.
So I'm thinking back, like, when you're talking about the Theo Von thing, right? So you're vouching for this guy who's an equal opportunity offender. Are you a bit nervous that, like, if this thing goes sideways, the president of the United States is going to ream me out?
No, I mean, I've developed a good relationship with the president over the years, and and the president, I think there's a misconception about the president's leadership style, and so I also made it very clear that Theo Von is a comedian, that he has a unique style, and that it's going to be a lot different than any other interview you've ever done before. And he understood that, and so when he went in there and he created some of the most incredible meme moments, maybe in political history, in that interview. In particular, the clip of Theo Von educating President Trump on the effects of cocaine. Everywhere I go post-election, everybody is telling Alex, that is the greatest clip in the history of political campaigning. And I'm like, it just turned into meme gold. And it was a lot of fun.
The president is a TV guy generally. Like in other words, so when you do these podcasts, like if you go on 60 Minutes, he's going to watch 60 Minutes, right, on Sunday nights. Like when you guys did these interviews, you mentioned the first one that he did where he's talking about the statistics. Are you feeding him like, hey, here's how well it did? Is he seeing that firsthand? Is he actually watching it on a computer or a laptop or an iPhone somewhere?
Um, but I would feed him after every interview. I would wait 24 hours, and then I would calculate the views on the main platform that was uploaded on. Most of the time, it was YouTube. And then what I would do is I would calculate the views of the clips from the interview that would go viral. So I would advanced search on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, and I would identify all of the viral clips. So for the Theo Vaughn interview, we had, I want to say about 400 million views across the board in less than 24 hours following that from all the different viral clips that went viral. And so I presented that to the president. I also did a sentiment analysis in the comment section that I would present to the president, show how a lot of the comments in real time were going from saying things like, I had reservations about Trump before this interview. Now I love Trump. And so we could see in real time how a lot of these people's audiences were warming up to the president as he continued to do these. And so I made a very conscious effort to make sure that the president continued to see how these were ratings gold. And the more ratings gold they were, the more he wanted to do them, which, it worked out in our advantage.
That's awesome. I want to go back to the story though, because to this in the book, because again, I think it was so cool that you basically fact checked this in real time as we're doing. But it says you guys are told by the president, run it by Barron. If Barron likes it, we'll do it. You and Daniel Alvarez exchanged quizzical glances. This is according to the book Fight. It was close to a yes, but now they had to figure out how to get the former president's 18-year-old son on the phone. Barron Trump, whose mother had always tried to keep him out of the spotlight, had become a valued advisor to his father, often giving the elder Trump articles to read and acting as a tour guide to the younger generation. There was always plenty of chatter inside the campaign about the latest doings of Don Jr., Eric, Laura, Ivanka, and Jared, all of whom toiled in the political ringer. You don't talk about Barron, one Trump aide said. You don't talk to Barron. He's not like the other kids. And then it basically goes on to how you guys actually encountered Barron. Is that accurate that it was Jared Kushner that brokered some discussion with him and doing this? Like, how did that piece, did the book actually capture that right?
Well, I work closely with all of the Trump kids. I have a great relationship with all of the Trump kids, and so I just simply asked one of them for Barron's number, and they just ended up putting me in a group text with them after receiving permission from Barron. And so it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't a massive struggle to find that number. I built up some goodwill with the family, and so they felt comfortable, doing that. But it is, you have to have a little bit more flair for a book to sell, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that's why I ask, because I've seen enough of these movies where you go, that's not exactly how that went down, and it's interesting. Walk me through kind of the debate strategy, right? There's a documentary, I think Tucker put out one that kind of shows Trump in the room feeding tweets to some of the aides who are putting it out. Were you involved in that at all? Like what to tweet, when to tweet it, or was it just the outside accounts? And if so, how was that strategy determined going into like something like that big debate with Biden?
Well, the president. So I was still on during the debate with Biden. I was still on the super PAC side, so I was not involved in any of those discussions. For that debate, so I can't speak on that. But for the Kamala Harris debate, I actually had the fun job of building out a social media war room in Philadelphia, where we invited about 30 of our top influencers, and we watched the debate live from Philly, right down the road from the debate. And we were going to tweet in support of the president. And the president, about 2 minutes before he went on stage, decided to FaceTime me. And so I answered the FaceTime, and it's the president. And he said he wants to say hi to all of the influencers. So
you didn't know that. You didn't. You looked down at your phone. I've gotten called.
Yeah.
I get the call. I've never gotten a FaceTime.
Yeah. So I get a FaceTime, and so the president pops on. He goes, and I literally look at my clock. It's like 8:58 p.m. He's going on stage in 2 minutes, and he goes, "You guys are far more important than anything that's going to be happening out here. Have fun tonight. You guys are going to do great. We're going to be paying attention to what you guys put out, etc." And I'm like, what the heck? So that was the responsibility that I was put in charge of for the debate. Kind of the rapid response, the defense, making sure that his message was getting amplified. All of the clips were getting promoted properly. And we had some fun with that. And obviously on the flight in to the debate that day, the president posted about the Springfield, Ohio cats and dogs. So the media was already losing their minds going into that debate. And so we had some fun playing a rapid response that day.
How excited you all of a sudden hold up your phone and you go, "Oh, hey guys, it's the president." How did that go over with all the influencers there?
They were pumped, and the president signed personal letters for each and every one that came, and it was a fun experience. And we have such the luxury. The president has such a luxury of having all of these great supporters with massive platforms that love him genuinely. And we don't need to go pay these people to do anything for us like the Democrats. The Democrats have to pay their influencers to, do whatever for them. But we have all of these people who support us and love the president. And so when the president FaceTimed them, they were all ecstatic because they have a, really personal connection with him. And so they were excited to hear from him. They were appreciative of his words, thanking them for all of their support. And then he went out on stage and he crushed it, created an incredible debate, moment. It was 3-on-1. And that was really the narrative that we were pushing all night, how this was a 3-on-1 debate. The ABC news anchors were terrible. I don't think they should ever be able to host a debate again after that display. But, in real time, we were doing rapid response. And obviously that debate was the Springfield cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
One of the most incredible lines in, debate history. And the Democrats thought that was going to be what, was going to be the crushing blow to the president. But just hours later, it became one of the most viral songs of the year. And then President Trump and Republicans won the Springfield, Ohio township for the first time in the history of that community. And so
I didn't know. No, wait. I never knew that. If you listen to the media, Alex, it was the mayor was against Trump, but I didn't realize that he actually won Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, the president won Springfield, Ohio, actually by a sizable margin, and you'll never hear that in the media. And so they wanted you to think that the president's posting of memes would have cost him the election. But again, they're totally out of touch, and it became a cultural moment. That cats and dogs line became an incredible song. And they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. So that went crazy viral on TikTok, and I think it was totally unintentional that he said it in that rhythm, and then it just went crazy. But
did you jump on that? Did you know at that moment you're like, we got to amplify this? This is huge.
Well, I was absolutely amplifying that song. That was an incredible song. But the Democrats were trying to make that the massive, the crushing blow to the president. But everybody else in the world was having fun with it. And the Democrats just came across as so angry, and Republicans came across as a little bit more fun. And fun plays better on social media.
Yes, I will agree with you. But there's two pieces to this that I think are fascinating. Number one, you point out if you listen to the media, whatever, Democrats have their A game on and all these people, and you're right, that's not what the reality is. Like, they pay for their social media influencers. They don't get the viral moments in the backup. Like, Trump, as a 78-year-old president and nominee, embraces this. And I just think it's funny how that's not what you would assume is the case. You got the younger, hipper, well, at least fake hipper, Kamala Harris, and yet they blow it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was another thing that I found to be entertaining was the Democrats kept calling Kamala like the young face, right? But like Kamala's 60, and 60 is younger than 78, but 60 is not young, so she's not like in touch with the youth like they tried to claim she was. They acted like she was like a 35-year-old, up and coming politician. I mean, she's 60 years old and she's been in politics for 35 years. And so she totally wasn't in touch. The president is very in touch with cultural moments. He's very in touch with what's happening in pop culture. And he knows, and he also has something that the kids call aura or Riz. And so, he kind of leans into, he identifies what is kind of like a viral trend, and he kind of leans into it. And he has a really unique way to put his own twist on some of these moments and some of these things. But he's very in touch with the pop culture. He pays attention to who's popular, who's not. He leans into certain issues. He's got great political instincts. He picked on Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
And so like everybody said, oh, Trump can't touch Taylor Swift. She's an icon. But by this time, when Donald Trump posted in all caps, I hate Taylor Swift, right? The Democrats thought, oh my God, every young girl in America is going to come out and vote against Donald Trump. Trump's instincts on that were right. The very next day, ABC came out with a poll that said Taylor Swift's endorsement, does it help or hurt Kamala Harris? 7% said helps, 8% says hurts, and the rest said, we don't care about Taylor Swift. And so, like, the president pays attention to these cultural trends, and he always seems to be on the right side of these things. And so he just recently was involved in the cultural news when he talked about Shador Sanders and him sliding in the draft. So he's very on top of these things, and it's quite remarkable, as you mentioned, for a 78-year-old man.
Well, I mean, on the Shador Sanders thing, he was obviously, that's a sports thing, but like when you talk about culture and like who's up and who's down, is it Barron Trump that's giving him insight into this? Because that's what the press tells you, that Barron Trump is the sort of the cultural young person whisperer. Is he reading Us Weekly? What is it that keeps him in touch? Is it Alex Bruesewitz? Is it someone else saying, hey, I want to show you this? Like, I just, that's what I find him fascinating, because I know what he reads in terms of newspapers.
Yeah.
But where is he getting this information, and how influential is Barron?
Well, I don't want to speak on the president's relationship, with his son. But Barron is very on top of these things. He's very smart. Just like every other 19-year-old, they're very plugged into these types of things. But I'll point to the Adin Ross interview, for example. The president listens to people that he views to be experts in certain fields or demographics, whatever. So before we did the Adin Ross interview, I was having a conversation with the president, and I was like, there's a rapper. His name's Young Thug, and he's being treated unfairly by Fannie Willis. And he goes, I've heard of this. I've heard of Young Thug. Remind me of. And I told him the case, etc. And he goes, yeah, that's right. That's not right. It's not right. It's what's happening. He is being treated unfairly. And then a couple of days go by, and then Adin Ross, and I don't bring it up again, Adin Ross brings up, he goes, so my friend Young Thug, he's in jail. And Trump interjects, he's not being treated fairly. We need to treat Young Thug fairly. And that clip goes crazy viral. It's 40 million views. And so the president, he hears things, he does research on things, he learns more about it, he talks to people about these certain things, and then I think he makes up his opinion that way.
When you look back on the list of these podcasts that you guys did, let's just start with an easy. Is there one of the interviews, Adin Ross, Theo Von, the Nelk Boys, I know that was right before you, Joe Rogan, Impulsive. Is there one that you thought, hey, that one really made an impact?
Yeah, I think the Theo Von one was really impactful. I think it was very humanizing of the president. It was very tough for the Democrats to talk about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and he is basically this fascist figure when Donald Trump is joking and laughing about cocaine with Theo Von, right? So in a split screen, when the Democrats, because at that time they were still trying to use this, Donald Trump is a monster narrative, but they started to not be able to use that anymore the more we showcase the president in these formats, because they're like, this guy is like a hilarious dude. He's like a normal guy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the Theo Von one was impactful. That was in early August. And then I think in October, when the president sat down with a guy named Andrew Schultz on that podcast, the Flagrant podcast, I think that was a really solid one. It again showcased the president's humor a little bit more. Andrew Schultz has a very left-leaning audience because Andrew Schultz also has a podcast with Charlemagne, who is very left-leaning. And so the president went into this environment, and he did very well. He did a great job of kind of winning over this center left-leaning audience and making it more in his corner. So I think the Andrew Schultz one was fantastic. It's where he introduced the term "the weave," where the president talks. Oh my God,
that's where that. Yeah.
Where the president talked about how he goes from one topic, takes a break, talks about another topic, but then comes back to his original topic and finishes his thought. And so he introduced that topic or that there. He also talked about the art of nicknaming his opponents, and kind of let the audience in on some backstory about how he wasn't a big fan of the nickname Tampon Tim because it didn't pew, and when you have a nickname it needs to pew. So we had some incredible content, and then obviously the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, 3.5 hours long, and it was fun because we kind of did one podcast a week for the final 4 months of the campaign, and then the final shebang that we did was Joe Rogan. And
is there one that you wish you had done?
Well, I think, we had a lot of outreach from a lot of these different podcasts. One I'm glad that we avoided completely was Call Her Daddy. And she ended up lying about us. She did this podcast
That's what her name, Alex
Cooper.
And she's the one that the Kamala team spent $100,000 to rebuild her set on.
Right. And Alex Cooper, her team reached out to us, and I never responded to her. And then after the election, she obviously got some blowback from her audience for having Kamala on and not having Trump on, et cetera, et cetera. And so after the election, she did a sit-down interview with New York Times, and she said, we had conversations with Donald Trump's team about making this happen. That conversation never took place. So we never had a conversation with her. We never entertained it because, she would have been very hostile. Like we went into interviews and this is another thing I find to be hilarious, is how the media has covered the podcast circuit we went on as this right-wing manosphere. All of these people at one point or another were critical of President Trump in that same year, in that same calendar year. And most of these people were Democrat voters in 2016 and 2020. And so we were open to doing interviews that we knew were not going to be 100% friendly, but I was never going to put the president in a situation where the interview was going to be 100% hostile. And Alex Cooper would have been 100% hostile. She's not an equal opportunity critic. She only, she's had podcasts over the years where she's very nasty towards the president. No podcast at all being remotely critical of the Democrats. And so that would have been very foolish to put the president on that one. And so we decided not to. I didn't even respond to the lady. And then she goes and says that she had a Zoom call with me, and I've never talked to this person in my life.
Oh, so it wasn't even like Team Trump. It was, I had a call with Alex Bruesewitz.
No, she said Team Trump. Yeah.
Okay. But that there's no one else to talk to her.
There would be nobody else that was spearheading that lane on our team.
Right. Okay. That's fascinating. All right. Well, this is great to know. Is there another female that you were considering that you would have done?
Well, we had a really awesome, we were very, I guess, male top heavy in the podcast space, but the entire podcast industry is very dominated by male voices. It's just the way it is. But we did have a really fun meetup with two girls. They have a podcast called Girls Gone Bible. And two,
They were at that Trump rally. I did not. I met them at the. Well, I saw them. I didn't meet them at that the Trump rally during the inauguration. They are fantastic.
Yep. They are fantastic and they have a massive platform and they do these live shows all across the country where they get 500 to 1,000 young girls that come and listen to them talk about how, their life has led them to find Jesus. And they're very passionate and impactful speakers. And I invited them to meet the president in October in Las Vegas. And they came and they prayed over the president and they made a TikTok video went incredibly viral of that moment. Would have loved to had the president sit down more formally with them. But I'm glad that we got to do that TikTok. But
go ahead.
No, I was
just going to say, how do you rate how the White House is continuing this effort in terms of influencers and podcasters?
Well, it's a lot different. But they're doing a great job. The president is very focused on presidential duties right now. And so he hasn't done any sit-down interviews with podcasters since taking office. But he, has been very welcoming to, celebrity personalities coming to the Oval Office. For example, I was recently there with actor Vince Vaughn, and we had a great day with Vince and the president. I recently went golfing with Saquon Barkley, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley, and the president, and we spent all day with him, and we got great press out of that. Conor McGregor, we took Conor McGregor to the White House not too long ago, and so the president is very welcoming and bringing some of these more high profile voices in. And what's a big difference between this administration and the previous and the president's first term was that these types of people are willing to actually go to the White House this time. Yeah. And so that's exciting. But as far as the team's going, like Taylor Budowich, one of the smartest guys that I know, he's one of the best guys that I know as well. He's been very supportive of me in my career. And he was a very impactful player early on with, suggesting that I kind of take the lead on the podcast role on the campaign. But he's a brilliant person running comms over there. Stephen Chung is also one of the smartest and best guys that I've ever worked with. Like, the guy is hilarious. He's made history. I like to tell everybody every time I'm around Stephen, I make sure that people know that he is the first communications director in White House history to get the word cuck added into the presidential records. And when he called Tim Walz a cuck accurately. So he's incredible. Caroline is obviously doing a great job. Kaylin Dorr, who is now running the White House social media team, is fantastic. And then Alex Pfeiffer, who oversees the rapid response 47 team and other comms efforts. Like that comms team is brilliant, fantastic. And I think it would be 1,000% great if Sean Spicer just went back in there too.
Dude, you were on such a roll for a second. I appreciate that. You see the blood in my face. The president said that to me the day I left. He said, Sean, you look so much healthier. And I said, sir, that's with all due respect. That's because you. Let me ask you one last question on a policy issue, because this is so fascinating. I get the president's use of TikTok as a means to communicate to young people. In its current form, believe it is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. How do we balance those needs, to me, of wanting to make sure that we communicate with young people, but also recognizing that this is a tool of the Communist Chinese government to influence us and to infiltrate us?
Yeah, that's certainly the belief of many in our country, and the president takes that concern seriously, and that's why he is working to negotiate a great deal that takes TikTok out of the hands of these bad actors and gets it controlled by an American company. And so I think the platform itself, it needs to be protected because it's one of the most impactful campaign tools that we've ever seen before. We do substantially better on that platform than the Democrats, quite frankly. And I think the Democrats were all in favor of TikTok up until they started getting smoked on there. And then all of a sudden, Biden's like, "Oh, it's a national security threat." Meanwhile, his son is the real national security threat. But the New York Times came out with a public sentiment analysis on TikTok in a few months before the ban came out, and it showed that through 2 million posts that were studied, Donald Trump, 70% of those 2 million posts were Donald Trump friendly, and only 30% were friendly to Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden looks at that, and maybe in his one lucid moment in the entire administration, he's like, "Okay, this is not good for me," and then he signs the ban. So, there's a lot of questions that I have about how that TikTok ban actually came about. But the Democrats love TikTok up until they start getting smoked on there. And so I think it's a really important platform. I think the president and his team are still working diligently to make sure that we get the best deal possible. I'm optimistic that we will get a deal. But until then, we're going to use the platform to get the president's message out. And, the Democrats are also using it. Like Joe Biden signed the TikTok ban, but he started a Joe Biden for president account. So like if he thought it was a national security issue, why is he posting on there? So there's a lot of these questions that I have. I think that a lot of Americans have about it. And so protecting TikTok is something that most young people want. And I think a lot of America wants.
Okay. Alex Bruesewitz, I love this conversation. Thank you for joining us and sharing all this insights with us. I could go on for hours, but I'm not allowed unless you want to give me a bigger podcast and promote it. But thank you for everything that you've done for the president and for the team and just how generous you've been with your time. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for being with us. I love that conversation with Alex. I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back here on Monday, of course. Make sure you hit that subscription button and notification, share the show with 5 friends, but also go to SeanSpicer.com and sign up for the newsletter. Take care. Have a great weekend. Thanks for being with us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.